just a better person than I knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bankstead. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Today. Plus, check out our...
Hey, everyone. How are you doing? It's Kirk Bankstead with the Up North podcast. Patty Vasquez,
about this in school?
do we got you?
Yeah, okay. What's first?
Smoky
Maybe
Bear.
not. We don't have Patty Vasquez
We got a
yet.
look of confusion is what I'm saying.
We'll put her on mute until we get on. We have Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Thanks for joining us, Ben. And we have John Shelton, who is the president of the American Federation of Teachers in Wisconsin. Hey, John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. All right, so we're going to talk about two things today. First, we're talking about ICE agents and their relationships with sheriffs in Wisconsin, and then we're going to talk about we're going to talk about how Evers is potentially planning to spend down our state budget surplus of $2.5 billion, and why John and Senator Chris Larson, who usually joins us, and I, and this whole cast think that's a terrible idea and that money should go to education. That's going to be the second part of our show. So first of all, do we have Patty back? Patty, let's unmute Patty.
Our business. Also, our friends at Anderson's Candies are offering you $5 off with the special code. Oh, can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear you guys. That's why I'm muted, guys. I can't hear the Up North podcast, so I have to mute myself for you. Okay.
All right. We will get Patty in. Ben, can you give us a roundup of what's going on with the with all this airport stuff happening with ICE right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a holding pattern at this point. We're 6 weeks in. We're dealing with, depending on the airport you're at, I'm seeing reports. I have listeners in Houston telling me they were waiting 4 and 5 hours. One of my guests this morning was flying out of San Francisco, said it was a pretty straightforward process. So depending on which place you are determines how long you're going to be waiting right now. We've obviously got the ICE agent rollout, which isn't it ironic that it seems like they finally found the spine to allow their faces to be shown once they were labeled as a terrorist, or otherwise they'd be labeled as terrorists in the airports if they were to continue wearing masks. So that's a nice change of pace there. And we find ourselves right now kind of waiting and seeing with Donald Trump holding up what seems to be efforts at bipartisan efforts to reopen these airports. And I'll be honest with you, Kirk, you know me, there's a very straightforward path towards Republicans getting everything they want and me saying, how did liberals let this happen again? And for some reason, Republicans don't want to take that as an opportunity. We could open the airports right now. And Republicans could still fund ICE through reconciliation. Nothing would be gained from a Democratic perspective, and the airports would be open. And because of one man, they stay closed. I compare it to Speaker Voss stopping postpartum care through Medicaid, even though a lot of Republicans claim that's what they wanted. And as far as I'm concerned, if one person's holding it up, we blame that entire party until they fix their behavior. So we're in a wait and see moment right now, but I've been predicting on my show because of how unpopular this is, by Monday at 8:30 when Outside the Box starts, will be reopened, is what I'm guessing here. But that's all speculation on my part.
It seems like a complete, I mean, I don't like playing politics. I like, making sure that America doesn't fall into authoritarian hands. And I don't want to say that this is a great opportunity for Democrats to win, the argument. But it is obviously, we've got all the cards right now because, everyone's going to blame the entire administration. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, it's whenever the last time I was on this show, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was last week. I've lost all track of time. So many things going on. But, we talked about how historically unpopular it is what this administration is doing. And this is just another example of it. I mean, gas prices going through the roof. People are feeling that with the Iran war. And now you've got this effort to bring ICE agents into airports. I mean, it's deeply unpopular. They're not going to obviously do anything about the lines. It's just that people are experiencing. It's just one more way to try and like use this like authoritarian intimidation tactic. And nobody's down with this, right? Aside from Trump's like super hardcore group of people. And they just continue to make themselves deeply, deeply unpopular. And as we continue to move forward, it's really two questions, right? Like, how do we stand up against this, and how do we not waste this opportunity to win elections and really change things with a historically unpopular administration?
Got it. Thanks, John. So I wanted to update everybody on like the news of the day, but I also wanted to delve into a story that was deeply troubling that brought together Chicago and Broadview and ICE protests there and little old Dodge County, Wisconsin, which is like just south of, I think it's south of Oshkosh and like north of like Milwaukee is Dodge County. Like Waiawega, I believe, is in Dodge County. So there was a Pakistani woman. I wrote about it in my essay last Sunday. There was a Pakistani woman named Suni Navki, and she claimed that she was detained at the O'Hare Airport for 30 hours and then shuttled to the Dodge County jail and then released on the streets of Dodge County, rural streets of Dodge County, and had to go hitchhike to the Holiday Inn. And this was right before the Illinois primaries, and it made all the news all around the Midwest. And there was everyone rushed to her defense because we've seen so many terrible things that ICE has done to American citizens. This woman is an American citizen. She's darker skinned because she's Pakistani, which is that just fits right into the narrative of what ICE is doing, disappearing people. I jumped to the conclusion and said, we gotta, the Dodge County sheriff is obviously lying because this woman's phone, apparently from their side of the story, this woman's phone was both detected at the Broadview Detention Center in Chicago and also detected in the Dodge County jail. Since those reports came out, ICE has shown footage that this woman left their detention facility within 90 minutes of being detained. And the Dodge County jail, who is a rabid MAGA Republican who went to the RNC and, has done everything that ICE wants him to do. He's encouraged, he wants to get rid of immigrants. He said that she's never was at his jail. I was rushed to call him a liar. It has since come up that maybe that's not the case. The lawyer for this woman says she stands by her story, but I potentially might have to offer a mea culpa down the road if it proves that this woman might not be telling the truth. Some of her story doesn't check out. She said she worked for SAP, a German software company, and SAP said she didn't work with her. And she said she was with a bunch of other people, and SAP can't vouch that any of them were employees or she was with them at all. So we'll see what happens with that story. But it brought me to start thinking again about sheriffs who are cooperating with ICE and how in Wisconsin we shouldn't like that, and we shouldn't and sheriffs are getting reelected in November. All sheriffs, I believe, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, Amy's our producer in the background. I believe all sheriffs are reelected every 4 years, and it kind of coincides with the governor election. So we got an opportunity to elect sheriffs who don't work with ICE in the future. And so that was what I wrote about. And even though this story about the Dodge County sheriff might not check out well, there is another story. And this story is about Elvira Benitez of Sheboygan Falls, who is a 51-year-old woman and was in the U.S. for 35 years, has 4 U.S.-born children, and no criminal history. She crossed the Canadian border accidentally during a family road trip in 2025. She spent 6 months in ICE custody and then won her case. The judge canceled her deportation and began a green card process for Elvira Benitez. She was rearrested by ICE in March, just this month, during a routine Milwaukee check-in while the government appealed. She was shackled and transported to a Kentucky facility. Her husband said, "My wife is not a criminal, but she is being treated that way." Patty, you're back. Do you want to comment on this? Oh, snap. Patty we still can't hear Patty. We're going to get you on break, Patty.
Well, let me, I can chime in there, Kirk, because
Okay, right.
I don't know if you intended for this kind of segue to happen, but I'm going to give you the credit of being a genius on this one here. But the stories you're talking about there absolutely coincide with the TSA shutdown conversation. The reason why there are unmasked ICE agents at TSA handing out waters and actually behaving like human beings for the most part is because, based on the stories that you are describing, based on the litany of mistakes that have been both publicly and privately enacted over the course of the last year and some change, they are at historic lows. And I think we've had, if it wasn't on this show, it was on my show, we've talked ad nauseum about abolish ICE is becoming a moderate position when not too long ago, most Democrats would have said, well, we need ICE, but we just need to rein it in. Whereas now people are saying, do we really even need this? And I think the TSA conversation is tying in with these mistakes. They're egregious, they're disgusting, they're racist, they're bigoted, but they're also, and I know you said you don't want to play politics, but it's not politically popular. Even if every single MAGA voter gets behind it, there's enough people out there that absolutely hate what they're looking at. You are in the majority when you highlight this and express frustration with it. And I think the ICE agents at TSA is an overcompensation for that behavior.
John, give us 30 seconds on what you're thinking about sheriffs working with ICE.
I mean, they absolutely shouldn't. I believe you're right, Kirk, about every 4 years sheriffs getting elected, and they certainly don't have to do it. And when you hear these stories, that's what it's all about, is the stories of individuals. That's how we break through the propaganda that's coming out about what it is that ICE is doing. And the story that you just told is so crucial, right? This is a person who's been in this country for all intents and purposes. She is an American, and to be treated like that is just egregious. And why would local authorities be complying with this madness?
Thanks, John. So that's a great segue, and we're going to break soon to get a couple commercials in and figure out how to get Patty on our show, because we were
can you hear me?
her.
Yes, we can.
I didn't want to interrupt anybody. I didn't want to be like test while someone's in the middle of a very important thought. And before we go to the break, I do want to let you know that I've been going to O'Hare Airport to observe and document ICE agents. I have not and I'm not using them I would not use any photos to dox anybody or blast them. But I will say that they changed their policy today, and I'm going to find out if it's accurate. They're saying that if you do not have airport business, you are not allowed on the property. However, there are media circumstances, so I'm going to probably work with them that way. But they are trying to find ways to prohibit access to document what's going on out there.
Take us away, Patty.
All right, it's the Up North podcast. Of course, our fearless leader, Kirk Bangsa joins us. John Shelton, the president of the American Federation of Teachers in Wisconsin, and Ben Cominos, the host of Outside the Box on WHBY. They have an app for that. Let's take a break here and come back on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, and KTNF AM 950. Thank you all for joining us.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells Progressive Beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive Beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells Progressive Beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
And we are back with the Up North podcast, of course, brought to us by Minocqua Brewing Company and our fearless leader, Kirk Bang. Said, take it away, Kirk.
Okay, thanks, Patty. We are moving into it's gonna get a little technical here, but I think the Wisconsinites listening, and anybody around the country, even those in Illinois and abroad, should understand the relationships that ICE has built with county sheriffs and how potentially problematic those relationships are. So, Amy, can you put up this? Well, first of all, let's put up the graph. Oh, no, put up the descriptions of what this 287G program is. So, first of all, the 287G program is something that county sheriffs sign up with ICE to work with them. So, there's three different ways this is being done. There's three different models. The least invasive model is called the warrant service officer model. And that means that if you put somebody in jail and you're working with ICE, you can kind of talk to these people you can question them about potentially being illegal immigrants. And you can decide based on whether or not those questions map up to what you want, that you can detain them for an extra 48 hours than you're legally allowed to detain them based on federal law as opposed to Wisconsin law. The counties that are using this model are a lot. Brown, Calumet, Fond du Lac, Manitowoc, Marquette, Outagamie, Sauk, Sheboygan, Washington, Winnebago, Wood, plus new additions Dunn, Green Lake, and Walworth. That's a lot of counties. We'll show you where all they all are. A lot of them are right where Ben's radio show is and where John lives. The second one here is called the jail enforcement model. And this is really insidious because basically if you could pull over somebody for speeding and instead of giving them a ticket, you could take them to the jail and then you can check the DHS database to see if these guys are potentially in there as illegal immigrants, and then you can hand them right over to ICE. So it's using things that have nothing to do with immigration and kind of tricking people to get into the jail into sheriff's custody, and then handing them over to ICE. And then the last most invasive is called the task force model, which is basically allows patrol officers to become ICE agents, and they can stop, interrogate, and arrest anyone they suspect may be undocumented, just out in the field, not only in jails. This model is most associated with racial profiling abuses. Apparently, the Palmyra Police Department in Jefferson County signed one of these things, and people were so upset by it that they protested, and they quickly stopped doing it, which shows the power of protest. I didn't mention Dodge County, and Dodge County was a big part of this story. Dodge has a separate agreement altogether, along with Lafayette County, where they just work directly with ICE and have prisons that detain anybody that ICE wants them to. It's a much more direct relationship, and it's probably worse than the 287G program. John, you are running for Common Council in Green Bay, which is in Brown County. What do you think about your sheriff working with ICE? I kind of asked you this earlier, but I want to talk about Brown County in specific.
Yeah. Well, and I gave a very, short answer then because I knew we only had 90 seconds or whatever. But I'm coming at this from two perspectives. So I'm president of a union that at our last convention, we declared ourselves a sanctuary union. What that means is that, we oppose ICE overreach in all of its forms. And here locally, I'll be honest. I was on the fence about whether to run for city council. I decided to do it because Green Bay has always been kind of the tip of the spear in terms of attacks from Republicans, both at the state and at the national level, around everything from democracy to immigration. And so for me, fortunately, our Green Bay Police Department is not cooperating with ICE. They have no such agreements. We're really happy with that. One of the reasons I'm running though is because I want to make sure that continues to be the case. That we have a city council that is going to stand up to that, and that we use every myself and other folks who I'm kind of allied with that we use every part of our platform to stand up against this. At the county level. The sheriff should have never agreed to this. It's unnecessary. I don't know all the rationale for it, but part of this, Kirk, that I don't think that we got into as much is that these local county governments, that they're incentivized to do this because they get basically a certain amount of money for every day that these people are detained by ICE, right? So I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's a relatively substantial amount of money. And so, that probably played a role in Brown County. What I would like to see is our county board, and of course, there's a bunch of county board elections that are happening next in a couple weeks as well. I would like to see our county board stand up to this and basically demand that the sheriff renegotiate this. There's been a lot of activist groups here who have been pushing him to do that. And of course, as you mentioned, there will be an election in the fall. I'm not sure if anyone has yet. I don't think anybody has declared that they're running against Delane, but I think somebody should, and they should make this a key point of contention because this is really central to our democracy, whether we're allowing our local governments to be complicit in the overreach of ICE. However you feel about the immigration question, and that's good enough reason in of itself for us to stand with our immigrant brothers and sisters against this kind of stuff. But in terms of what this means for things like due process and the very integrity of our democracy, we should be standing up against this. And the other piece of this, I don't know if we're going to get into this at all, but the ACLU, in conjunction with Voces de la Frontera, has actually challenged these cases in the court. So the state Supreme Court will be hearing this. Makes it all the more reason that on April 7th, people go out and make sure they elect Chris Taylor to the Supreme Court so we can make sure that this gets a fair hearing in the state Supreme Court.
Thanks, John. Ben, this is a great segue. You brought it up. Ben's got numbers about what these counties are actually getting paid to jail immigrants. Ben, what do you got?
Yeah, you need an industrial complex described. I'm your guy. Talking about the prison industrial complex, we're looking at between $70 and $110 per bed, which is significantly higher than local county populations typically get for that number. And of course, we're looking at about $340 million given to some counties for this partnership. And Kirk and I were talking about this off the air, actually. It kind of constitutes, in a lot of ways, a bribe, because we have these counties that are underfunded, and in the state of Wisconsin specifically, it's not like we don't have the money to handle it otherwise, but you're seeing some sheriffs that I think would relish in this act just to do it. Other sheriffs maybe not necessarily thrilled with the decision, but knows that it's good monetary policy. And I'd even argue some people that join ICE view it through that lens. It's not like it was invented in Wisconsin, and it has existed before ICE, but I think this is just the most flagrant and corrupt iteration of the prison industrial complex that we've seen, at least recently in this country.
Got it. Patty,
Yep.
What's going on with legislation right now? You've done a little of
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
What's
Republicans passed AB 24 on a straight party line vote in the Assembly on March 18th. Last year, it passed 51-43 and is now in gross, meaning it passed the Assembly, but is still moving through the Senate, where it was available for scheduling as of June, which would require local law enforcement to check the citizenship status of people in custody for felony offenses and notify ICE if their citizenship can't be verified, and requires sheriffs to comply with detainers and administrative warrants. If a sheriff refuses to comply, the county would face a 15% deduction in its state shared revenue for the following year. And of course, ACLU of Wisconsin warned that this 15% of an entire county's shared revenue on this line would lead to the sheriffs erring on the side of overporting, meaning the chilling effect goes beyond the bill technically what it technically requires. So that's just one of the things that I know is happening. No sanctuary law exists statewide. 2 major counties are holding the line. Republicans are trying to use the state budget as a weapon to force compliance, which is, of course, insane.
Thank you, Patty. It shows that the Republicans are way off base here. You know, they're still pushing for this, even though it's deeply unpopular. We will hold the line, and that will probably help us take the majority in 2026 if we have elections. I think we got to go to a break, and after that, go to talk about education dollars.
Excellent. We are broadcasting the Up North podcast, courtesy of the Minocqua Brewing Company and our fearless leader, Kirk Bangstad, joined by John Shelton, president of the American Federation of Teachers, Wisconsin. Ben Cominos, the host of Outside the Box on WHBY. Of course, we're here on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. We're so glad you're all here. We'll be right back.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UPNORTH. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UPNORTH. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UPNORTH. Okay, everyone. This is the Up North podcast. We are back from break. Kirk Bangstad here. Joining us is Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton and John Shelton with the AFT Wisconsin. I wanted to switch gears. We'll talk about ICE and electing sheriffs who aren't working with ICE much more. But we also have something that's happening right now that's it's pretty important. And it's time sensitive, and I wanted to talk about it because Senator Chris Larson, who was on the show last week, kind of introduced this to me, and I didn't know it was happening, that Democratic Governor Tony Evers has been
working with Robin Voss and what's his name, LeMahieu. I don't know his first name. Was it Brian LeMahieu? I don't know, but these are both the Republican Senate Majority Leader and Assembly
Devin
Majority
LeMahieu,
Devin, yeah. And so, there's a $2.5 billion surplus in our budget, and that surplus kind of came from COVID money that the Republicans never let Evers spend, for the last 6 years. But arguably, the Republicans have been not letting him spend it, and we've been because of that. We've been shortchanging public schools all those years. So, Chris, Senator Larson, he wrote all about this on Sunday, saying we shouldn't count that as a surplus. We should count that as money that should have been going to public schools all along. A couple stats here is that Governor Evers signed it was kind of a line item veto, which allowed the state budget to give more money to public schools for 300 years. 300 years. It was kind of a sleight of hand and a gimmick. But that additional money per pupil comes out of the general fund, which comes out of property taxes from local property taxes, which means that people have to, chip it. You have to raise property taxes to fund your school. So that's not a way to fund our kids off the backs of property tax payers. And there's the other thing is that we don't have a surplus, and so the goal is to make sure that we tell Evers that this is not something we want him to do. I want to pass it to John because he, being the president of American Federation of Teachers, knows a lot more of the details of why our public schools are underfunded. And then we'll talk to Patty and Ben about their perceptions later. John, give us like the biggest reasons over the last 2 decades why public schools have just been chronically underfunded.
Yeah, well, first of all, Kirk, thanks for doing this topic, because this is really, really important. And we've been tracking this over the past couple of weeks. And, honestly, Senator Larson's Substack really does a nice job of laying this out. I'm actually sorry. I just want to say this. I'm blown away at the Substacks that come out of Minocqua. Honestly, all the people here, we just have such great stuff, and people are finding all these issues and really explaining them. So if y'all have not subscribed to the Substack, definitely do that. So first of all, the surplus, that's a projected surplus. And it's not necessarily the case that that's not money in the bank. That's what the state projects that surplus to look like. Now, that surplus has been on the backs of teachers, other educators, other public employees. This goes back to Republicans chronically underfunding public education, other public institutions for over a decade. And so we're at a moment now where Evers is deciding to negotiate. Our position is, first of all, we shouldn't be negotiating over this at all, because there's a really big chance that we're going to get a majority. Democrats are going to get a majority in both houses of the legislature, and we should be thinking about how we're going to use that money for our priorities. But if we are going to do it, it needs to go to public education, because as you mentioned it, public education has been chronically underfunded. The things to realize about this is that there are these things called revenue limits, which is a mix of this is a little bit in the weeds, but I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. The Wisconsin Public Education Network has great resources on understanding this if people want to dig into it a little bit more. But these revenue limits are a mix of state funding and property taxes. And these have been capped for a really long time. So that 400-year veto that you talked about, that line item veto that you talked about, it used a loophole to actually raise the revenue limits, but it didn't actually fund that money from the state. So what that means is that $325 a year that Evers put in there, that if the Republicans are not going to actually fund that at the state level, then property taxpayers have to make up the difference. So what's happened in a lot of places, because the state legislature has not properly funded education, is local school districts are having to go to referendum after referendum after referendum, right? You probably live in a community where you have a referendum right now, and it's just to kind of keep things where they are. The other piece of this is that the big things that was negotiated in this last budget was special education funding. And this was this was sold to us as something that would really add to the funding of public schools, because this was the first time in a very long time that there was no per pupil increase across the board in the state budget. And the reason was because there was a negotiated increase in special education funding. The problem is that that funding wasn't actually funded. It was funded at an estimated amount, and school districts spent dramatically more than what that was budgeted for over the past few years. So what Democrats have been asking for is some sufficient funding, which means that if you're going to say you're going to fund 45% of the special education funding for the state, you have to actually fund that. You don't just shortchange school districts when they spend more money. And just to give you some context, right, when special education funding became a thing in the 1970s under the individual idea, the Education Act that came out of Congress for individuals with disabilities, the goal was to spend dramatically more federal funding on special education. That didn't happen. And so, our state has to make up the shortfall. That increase in special education funding that we had in this last budget has not been nearly enough to keep up with the needs of school districts. That's why you're seeing these referenda, and that's why Democrats are saying right now, people like Senator Larson and Assembly Democrats, which is where this bill that I know we're going to talk about came from, they're saying you need to, if you are going to spend down the surplus, that needs to be done by directly funding public schools, not giving checks to taxpayers, because we have to make sure our kids have the resources they need to be successful.
John, talk to us about that Assembly bill. I think it's 1176. What are they trying to pass right now?
Yeah, so this came out of, I believe it was Christian Phelps and Angelica Cruz that came up with this bill. And then now all of the Democrats in the Assembly have signed on to it. Basically, what it does is it would spend $1.3 billion to fund public schools, right? Not enough to fully fund them, but it would be enough to really make a huge difference. And so, again, this has the support of Democrats in the Assembly. It has the support of most Democrats in the Senate as well. And, if Evers is really negotiating with Republicans in good faith, we would urge him to, to prioritize funding for education and to realize, as we've talked about a lot, Kirk, like Democrats hold the cards right now. I mean, look at all of the Republicans who are basically retiring from serving because they know they can read the writing on the wall. They know they're going to be in the minority next year. Let's not hamstring our majority when we get this by basically taking funding that should be going to public schools and doing something else with it. So, right now, I actually sent, I know, Chris wrote a great column about this, urging folks to get in touch with the governor. I've actually...
John, let's talk about that in the next segment because I want to spend more time on it. But I also want to make sure that there's another lawsuit happening right now that Law Forward, I believe, is doing. Ben, you know about this lawsuit? I know a little bit about it, but I think you know more.
They're basically, and I'm going to disappear off the screen here just because I want to make sure I pulled up the Wisconsin Constitution just to be able to cite from it. It guarantees every child an equal opportunity for a sound basic education free of tuition. And essentially, that is the line within the Wisconsin Constitution that Law Forward is focusing on, with the removal of a lot of these funds, or at least the stagnation of some of these funds. They are essentially pushing forward the idea that this is acting as some kind of abridgment of that Constitution. And as John highlighted, I believe in the second segment, regardless of what ends up taking place on April 7th, it stands to reason that there's probably going to be a pretty fair, assuming this gets escalated to the top, which everything always does in this state, it probably should end up seeing a fair hearing from the judges, and then we kind of go forward from there. Whether or not this works, time will tell, but definitely an interesting position to be taking on this one here, as this has been an issue since well before I moved out here. And as John highlighted, we in Appleton have a referendum, $15 per $100,000 your home is available extra on your tax bill to help fund these schools to the appropriate levels that they should be funded to.
Patty?
Yeah, look, this is something that if we look at DC as an example and Russell Vought as wanting to shrink the government enough to be able to drown it in a bathtub, this is what it looks like when the strangulation of a public good looks like. They're doing this across the country. Missouri had many places has gone down to 4 days, and they did this in Wisconsin and in Missouri where they wanted to lower the age at which kids can work, and that's part of this too. But the voucher program that started in Milwaukee as a targeted tool for low-income families has been expanded into a parallel, largely unaccountable system, and we see that across the country. And whenever I hear about special education funding, it makes me crazy because, as a mother of a child with disabilities, nothing makes me more enraged than knowing that they would rather they don't have to take our kids. There's no accountability for the programs they provide, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. So thank you, everybody. Let's continue our conversation when we come back. It's the Up North podcast with Kirk Bangstad, the genius, the mastermind behind Minocqua Brewing Company. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. Ben Cominos, the host of Outside the Box on WHBY. Go to HBY.com. Maybe you can download the app, whatever. And John Shelton, the president of the Wisconsin chapter of the American Federation of Teachers. More in a moment on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. Thank you for being here.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells Progressive Beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive Beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells Progressive Beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our Progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
And we continue the Up North podcast and our final home stretch here on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. Here's Kirk Banks, and take it away.
All right. So I've got a long relationship. Well, not long, since I've become an activist, and that's been only about 5 years, not as long as John for sure. And probably not as long as Patty, but we've fought hard. The Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC has fought hard for public schools. I raised about $250,000 to bring a case to the Supreme Court, an original action to the Supreme Court to try to get rid of voucher schools, because voucher schools are a whole nother topic. But they siphon away our tax dollars to pay largely for people to send their kids to religious schools, and so we had, when we brought that lawsuit, we decided we had to show voters. We had to tell voters why we were doing this. We just didn't want to screw over kids who were going to voucher schools. And so Patty allowed us to have a 10-part radio series on WCPT, and we talked about all the issues. And we went through it all in terms of all the bad things that are, like the Republican war on schools, I think was what we called it. So we really covered it a lot, but I wanted to give you a little bit more time, Patty, because you went through that with me. And I remember you just shaking your head after lots of different episodes we had, about Wisconsin. Luckily, Luckily, Chicago and Illinois isn't as bad as Wisconsin in this category. But what were some of your takeaways from 2 years ago?
Well, look, I mean, as you mentioned, having also helped a lot of candidates in Illinois, including, Supreme Court races, school board races, you see signs every single election cycle about, school funding, about the property taxes. I mean, we know across the country that the ways in which we fund school, public education, it just can't be tied to property taxes. And yet we're so far in this. And then when you divert that money to charter schools, to religious schools, and ultimately it's also what we learned were these, millionaires who end up making money. I mean, you could set up a school in a strip mall and then it's gone in 6 months, but you've already, sent all the money in that direction. And when you talk about Illinois, not only have we basically, we've actually eliminated pretty much any pathway to charter schools. We had a piece of legislation that kind of sunshined a couple of years ago. And in order, it was sort of more of it was considered a scholarship program. But even then, because it's a shell game when it comes to some of these charter schools. And because there is no regulation for them, we actually had one just close. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of charter schools in Chicago and parts of Illinois serve primarily a Latino community, right? So, and when I ran for office in Illinois, like the charter schools wanted me to take their, their endorsement questionnaire, and I don't want to have anything to do with it because I do believe in public school education. I do believe in the supports that are provided by public education for kids who have disabilities, and diverting the money and whether it's giving it to religious organizations or the wealthy is not what doing the best we can for our kids.
Ben, what do you think about this conversation? Ben, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I blew it. I'm the guy that's always on that, and I blew it that time. Dang it.
The show, I think, is all my fault. Well,
yeah.
Somebody's fault. Something got unplugged here at WCPT.
But yeah, to kind of echo what Patty said, I'm a public school educated guy myself, and while I do not have a special needs child, I worked in the industry for 4 years with children with special needs in my late teens and early 20s. Have a soft spot in my heart for that conversation, and it shouldn't be difficult to come to these conclusions. I do wish, and maybe John, I might put you on the spot with this one here. I am seeing Republicans out there, the go-to line they're going to right now is that the childbirths are stagnating. And so if how do I say this? If school funding stagnates, what's the big deal? But I think you did a pretty good job of highlighting it there, that it's not like this is 1 or 2 year removed. I mean, the fact is we've been watching this happen for 15 years. And moreover, not to say we don't have great teachers here in Wisconsin, but you make more teaching anywhere else because of Act 10, because we're not funding these schools. And if you could make $10,000 extra dollars, you might love your hometown, the people there, the family there. We are in a cash-strapped society right now, and you are screwing the children over from the funding per pupil perspective, and then screwing their education over from some of the best talents are leaving in the name of making more money perspective. So any thoughts on kind of that angle there? I'm all ears.
Yeah, so first of all, our population is not decreasing in Wisconsin. And if we connect this to the bigger conversation about immigration, like, we need workers in this state. One of the reasons that our population is not decreasing is because of the immigrant population. So that's number one. But number two, Ben, it's the rural schools that have been hit the hardest, the purported constituency of Republicans in the state that have been hit the hardest by Act 10. Because when, there's not enough funding to go around, it's the bigger, wealthier, comparably wealthier school districts can poach the best teachers, especially in things like math and science. So it's definitely not helping their constituency to underfund public schools.
All right, John, I cut you off last segment because I wanted to make sure that we had enough time for a call to action. If Governor Evers is a Democrat, he should be listening to the American Federation of Teachers. He should be listening to labor. He should be listening to the teachers union, and he should be and he was the head of the Department of
Public Instruction.
Department of Public Instruction before he was governor. He's supposed to be the education governor. What are the things that people can do who are listening right now to make sure that our surplus goes to education, or we hold it till the next administration?
Yeah, and our union endorsed Governor Evers twice for election, right? So, I was very excited about this earlier and brought it up. I sent out a message to all of our members and urged them to call or email Governor Evers. And I want to read to you what I told them to say, if as an example, right? Obviously, people should say what they feel called to say, but the quote is, "I urge you not to agree to spend down the state surplus. But if you are going to do so, to please ensure any negotiations prioritize the Assembly Democrats bill that funds our public schools." So that's number one, right? Republicans might not listen to us, but the governor, I think, surely will if we, get that message out there. You talked about all of the referenda, right? You need to vote for the referenda, but more importantly than that, right? In our union, we don't just vote for stuff. We get out and make sure that people in our community know about it. You need to let people know. It's sad that we have to, essentially, what we're doing is raising our housing costs to pay for education. But until we fix this at the state level, we have to make sure that people have have what they need. So vote on your referenda. You can actually, if you're in the Law Forward lawsuit, was built primarily with the 5 biggest school districts in the state. Other school districts can join in too. So if you're a union leader or a school administrator in another district and you want to get involved, contact Law Forward because they're still taking on litigants. So you can support that. And then most importantly, we gotta win a trifecta. We gotta hold Republicans accountable for what they've done to our public schools, and also hold Democrats accountable moving forward for making sure that they prioritize our public schools. We got to do all those things. So vote April 7th, vote in November, and we have to move forward to a way of funding public schools that actually makes sense and that doesn't shortchange our public school students.
Great. Thanks, John. And then I wanted to, although we've been talking about education for the last couple of segments, I wanted to make sure that we had a call to action for trying to get sheriffs who are working with ICE out of office. And so the call to action is this. Anybody who's listening right now, first and foremost, the Wisconsin or the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC will be working to unseat sheriffs who are working with ICE throughout the state. So now is the time for sheriffs to potentially announce their candidacies. If you are in one of these counties and your sheriff is working with ICE, please urge somebody to run against them. Sometimes these races just go uncontested, sheriff's races, but Brown, Calumet, Fond du Lac, Manitowoc, Marquette, Outagamie, Sauk, Sheboygan, Washington, Winnebago, Wood, Dunn, Green Lake, Walworth, Kenosha, Marathon, Kewanee, Waukesha. If you're in any of those counties, form a committee, find a candidate to run for sheriff. We will broadcast you to 200,000 people, the sheriff candidate. We will support them with our Super PAC. We need to unseat sheriffs, and it's not that hard if we organize. So that is our call to action. info@minocquabrewingcompany.com as well. Email us and organize, and we'll get back to you. Patty, give us the good word and lead us out.
The good word. Well, the good word is that it's always a pleasure to join you guys. And we do have to do everything we can to push back on this authoritarianism. I want to encourage everyone to go out to your No Kings event. I'm going to see everybody at Elk Grove Village. I'm going to be also in Walworth County at the Elkhorn No Kings rally in the morning. So I'm very excited about that. Kirk, we've got a little bit of time here. Where's everybody going to be for the No Kings?
Yeah, so our Madison tap room is open. The Minocqua one opens up in the summertime, but we're having a No Kings sign making party at 11 o'clock in the morning. The march is from 12:30 to 2 in Madison, Wisconsin, and then there's a big rally after that for a couple hours. We're having a big beer drinking, after, decompression session after the rally. Come have a beer with us. Show us your sign. We'll give you some money off a beer.
And we will also be on location at the Madison Tap Room next Wednesday, April 1st. So we're excited to see everybody there as well. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all the details and join us every Wednesday for the Up North podcast. I want to thank all of our sponsors, Pride Coffee Roasters, Minocqua Brewing Company, Source Solar, Are You Really Winning, and Anderson's Candy Shop. Thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank Lady B and Matt Cummings for making this go well. Of course, Amy Thomas, and thank you to Ben Cominos, Kirk Banks, and John Shelton. Have a great night, everybody. Love you all.
I say, Lord. die.